When does entertainment become sin? How far can we push that envelope? Hi, I'm Pastor Dave, and let me thank you for watching this episode of The Final Hour. In fact, let me encourage you to go to the Interpreting Times YouTube page and subscribe and like us there. In fact, sign up for our weekly newsletter so we can resource you each and every week. Now, I'm asking you about entertainment. How far can we push things seeking entertainment until we get to the point of sin? You know, those who follow and love Bible prophecy, there's a term that we hear quite often, and that term is called convergence. I hear it a lot, and I ask people, what do you think is really happening when we mention the word convergence? And a lot of times I get some blank stares or people kind of put it together. So let's take some time on this show and really go deep into asking and answering the question, what really is convergence? Because we have things happening in the world of technology, in the world of finance, in the world of politics, in the world of religion, in nuclear armament, what nations are doing, in climate change, and obviously with immorality and morals in our nation and around the globe. All those things are coming together and they're creating a perfect storm to create the end time scenarios we read about in the Bible. Now let's begin and look at some of these. The first one I want to look at, well, it's deeply concerning what's about to take place, at least here in America, if not around the world. It's just, well, let me talk about this. It's immorality and technology. Let me show you a headline here. This is from MSN. So it's a secular group putting this headline out. Chat GPT to generate adult erotica. That's what the headline says. There's no getting around it. What's going to happen here? This is lust. This is perversion. This is immorality at a brand new level. We are pushing the envelope and we're putting things in a place to where we're hitting the point of no return with all this. Now, let me explain this. Starting in December of this year, December 2025, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, he announced that ChatGPT would begin allowing erotica for verified adults. Now, what does that even mean? Basically, what they want to do, again, they're crossing a moral line, and it's beyond reproach with this whole concept and what they want to do. And he comes out and says, hey, you know what? We were never elected to be the moral police of the world. Now, why would he say that? Because he knows how immoral what he's plotting and what he's planning to do is. This plan is being sold as, quote, adult freedom. As an adult, you have the freedom to do what you want to do. What it really doing, all it's doing is monetizing lust. That's all this is doing. And it's expanding the reach of evil in places we haven't seen before. Basically, what this is going to be AI generated erotica offering people custom fantasies. Now, what could ever go wrong with something like that? AI generated erotica. It's designed to satisfy any, quote, fleshly cravings you may have. My goodness. This is what we've come to. This is what we want to do. Now, pornography is already a problem, especially here in America. And we're going to take this addiction, this problem, and add generated AI erotica to it. Software developers really are kind of pushing the dark side. You wonder how far can they go? How dark, how deep, how disgusting can this get? And they seem to be even extending the boundaries further than we ever imagined with this. Verified adults. Now, what is this? This is nothing more than a false promise. Well, I'm verified as an adult. What does that even mean? What does that look like? Now, this is where the moral battle kind of kicks in. This is not a technology issue. What we're talking about here is not an issue of technology. This is really a spiritual one. This is spiritual warfare, down and dirty in what it is. Humanity now is using technology to further serve darkness. Quite simply, that's all this is. This is nothing more than a marketplace for lust. Okay, now we're talking about convergence. How does that coming in December, how does this AI generated, trash, how does this converge and what does it converge with? Well, at the same time, in California, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, just kind of out and signed AB 495. Now, what is this? Now, this is within the state of California. AB 495 will allow for any adult to basically be verified. What they have to do is sign an affidavit, and they're saying that they are a child's relative. What this does, it takes away parental rights. Any adult can come and sign a caregiver authorization affidavit. So I'm going to sign an affidavit saying so and so, Susie over here or Johnny over here. Well, I'm their uncle. I'm whatever. I'm a verified adult. And then I have the rights and the ability now that the parents should have, but I have the rights and ability to make medical decisions, i.e., gender issues. I have the rights and ability to make educational decisions. It puts me in a place of power and position over that child. Now, what in the world can happen here? The ones that get harmed with this will be the children. The governor is saying, well, this is for safety reasons. There's nothing safe about this. When you look at this, there's no valid background check. There's no fingerprint card. There's no signature by the actual parents. Anybody can do this. In fact, instead of me going off on this, let me show you a real quick video, and I want you to hear from an actual official, government official, someone who is an elected official in California speaking out on this. Here, this video is pretty short, but hear his own words and what he says about this.
I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California and a California state legislator, and I've been talking about Assembly Bill 495 for the last 3 months, warning you that this is a dangerous bill that would put the welfare of children in grave jeopardy. In fact, I consider it to be a gift to child traffickers. Let me explain why. AB 495 is being sold by its author, Michelle Rodriguez, as a bill to protect children when ICE deports undocumented individuals. She claims, without any sort of evidence, without any sort of examples, that ICE is seizing parents in the middle of the night, and children are being left in the streets, waiting at school bus stops for their mother or their father to come pick them up, and nobody's there to pick them up. So we need to protect these children. How? By passing a crazy state law that allows any stranger to assert custody, to claim custody over a minor child, even without parental consent, even without any court process. And the sort of power that stranger would be able to hold over that child ranges from enrolling them in schools to authorizing medical care. It's astonishing. There is no protection for these children. This is now the wild, wild west.
All right, so now we have AI, ChatGPT generated erotica, and we have AB 495 in California, verified adults all coming together, and it's nothing but monetizing lust and endangering our children. Again, convergence, how it comes together. Now, let's move on and talk about geopolitics and nuclear armament. Now, why don't we talk about that? Isn't the world getting peaceful? Isn't President Trump bringing peace to the Middle East? Well, we now have France, Germany, and the UK. France, Germany, and the UK are coming together, what's called the E3. Now, what is the E3? These three nations are coming together, and they want to revive Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. What they want to do, they want to revive the negotiations for nuclear weapons with Iran. In fact, here's a headline. Now treaty puts UK, Germany, and France back at the heart of European security. What they're calling this basically is the Troika, the three of them. What's a Troika? A Troika is a group of three coming together. So you have France, Germany, and the UK coming together saying that we will decide the security, what's going to happen in the EU, and we want Iran to be able to have nuclear facilities. And what they're doing, which we have to understand, reading between the lines, if they allow Iran to have nuclear facilities and nuclear armament again, that ties Iran back to Russia, and Russia then oversees and threatens the EU. So it's mind-boggling what people think are okay. Now this group of three, this troika, let me show you a picture. This is a Russian chariot, a Russian cart being pulled by 3 horses. Now, when there's 3 involved, this becomes a troika. A troika means 3 coming together to work as one. And that's exactly what's happened in Europe. Islam is overtaking Europe at such a rate and at such a drastic level to have nations come up and say, now we want to support Iran, which is Sunni, by the way. And when you get the Sunnis and the Shiites going at it, it's going to be a mess. And while this is still happening, folks, understand where's the convergence? Why this is taking place in the European Union, what's going on in Iran, according to the Times of Israel, Iran is saying because of all that's happening now, they are no longer bound by the restrictions on their nuclear programs. When did anybody ever say that? You know, America and Israel, we bombed the nuclear facilities. We took that off the playing field. And now Iran's coming back and saying, well, because of that, we're no longer bound by any of our nuclear responsibilities, basically. Again, the Times of Israel is a headline here that's promoting that. Again, convergence. One piece, it's one domino that falls, and another domino that falls, and another domino that falls. As the European Union is doing this, as this troika is coming together, these 3 nations to support Iran, which is tied into Russia, what this does, the convergence, what this does, it sets up the Ezekiel 38 coalition. We're not there yet, but it begins to set up and solidify the Ezekiel 38 coalitions. Now, when you go to Ezekiel 38, let me remind you, there's 6 nations that are listed there by name. We have Russia, Iran, Ethiopia, would be called Cush. We have Libya, which we call Put in the Bible. We have Europe, and we have Turkey. So we have, again, Iran would be known as Persia in the Bible. So we have Persia, Cush, Put, Goma. We have Turkey, Europe, Northern Africa, Iran, and Russia. So Russia, Iran, Turkey, and Europe are now coming together. We have 4 of the 6 coming together right now, this day. And we had them saying they want to support Iran and what Iran is doing with their nuclear weapons. Again, it is all converging. Now, let's take that to the next level, because once you get into these countries, you get into Islam, you get into Judaism, you get into Christianity, religion becomes part of this. And much is taking place over there is done, quote unquote, for religious beliefs. Well, let's look at some religion, especially persecution. And when I say persecution, it's not persecution of Muslims, it's not persecutions of Buddha, of other religions. It's persecutions of Jews and Christians. The Christian persecution mostly is really taking place and is on an uprise like never before. Open Door, which is a ministry that follows this, is looking at the nations where Christian persecution is happening. And guess what? The mainline media is not talking about it. Here's an interesting fact. Do you realize that most of the population, most of the global population, around the world, lives in nations where Christianity is being persecuted? Just think about that. Now, we're here in America, we're here in the West, we don't have that, we don't quite understand that persecution, but most of the global population, most of the world population lives in nations where Christians are being persecuted. Let me give you some examples of this. You have persecution in China, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, North Korea, and the list goes on. These are some of the top ones. There's 1.4 billion people living in China. Okay? Do you realize in China, children under the age of 18 are not permitted to go to church? Do you realize in China, sharing the gospel on the internet is a crime? China is flat out against. That's why you have the underground church, and that's why they're persecuting pastors, collecting pastors, arresting pastors. But 1.4 billion people in China. What about India? India also has 1.4 billion. So now we've got 2.8 billion people between China and India. Over in India, hundreds upon hundreds of churches are being burned to the ground. In India, any Christian literature, including the Bible, are being confiscated and burned. That's happening in India. Again, the mainline media is not talking about that Christian persecution. Churches being burned, Christians being killed, the Bible being burned. In Indonesia, a total population of 283 million. That may not sound a lot compared to India and China, but look at this. Of the 283 million, 77% or 220 million of them are Muslims. Again, Islam is just taking over the European Union in this part of the world. So in Indonesia, 77% of the population, almost 300 million people, 77% is Muslim, persecuting Christians. There's 232 million people in Nigeria. What's happening over there? Folks, there's another way to put it. There's just genocide of Christians over there. Christians are being slaughtered, being tortured, being killed in Nigeria. It's one of the most dangerous places on the earth, according to Open Doors. And then you have, Afghanistan, Pakistan, North Korea. Again, I've explained it, I think, enough. You get the picture where the large portion of the global population around the world, they're living in nations that are persecuting, burning things, killing people, persecuting Christians. Convergence. You have, let's support Russia, let's support Iran, let's give them nuclear weapons, let's bring them together. And folks, what just took place this week in Damascus, in Syria? I'm not sure anybody's talking about this. Last week in Syria, they had elections. Nobody who was a citizen voted because they weren't aware of it. And what happened was it went completely Shiite. The government now of Syria is officially all basically Shiite Muslims. It's amazing. That will change the entire structure of the Middle East. In weeks and months to come, that should be a global headline, what's taking place in Syria. When they put elected officials in without electing them, and most of them are male, and they're Muslims, and they're Shiite Muslims. Pay attention to that and what's happening. You see, again, that's convergence. Now let's talk about the next topic. Things coming together. Let's talk about climate change. We hear that, and I don't know if your mind goes back to Al Gore and what that really means, but there is some things happening behind the scenes that have been planned for a while. And if you're not aware of it, if you're not keeping your head and eyes open, it's going to come in and affect your everyday life. It's going to affect you on a daily level. Well, what am I talking about here? Well, let's go back almost 10 years to 2016. Again, those who follow Bible prophecy, you may be aware of the World Economic Forum and what they came out with publicly and said in 2016. They actually released a 2-minute video, and what it was 8 predictions for the world in 2030. It becomes the 2030 agenda. And out of that is where you get, your social scores, and where you get 15-minute cities, and where you get everything they had in place coming out of the 2030 agenda. Well, when you look at what they were saying, you know what? Again, let me not assume that everybody has seen this video. It's about, I don't know, it's about a little over a minute. Let me show you. Now, as you watch this video, let me ask you to please pay attention to promise number 4. Watch this. All right, did you catch promise number 4? It dealt with meat. Now, when they came out and said that you will eat less meat, I remember watching this years ago, and I thought, how does that play into anything? I understand some of the things they want to do, taking America down, putting all the other stuff in, but not owning a house, I understand that. You see apartments going up everywhere. Well, that's part of the plan. But what are they going to do? How did the meat factor into it? Well, again, convergence. It's all coming together. When you look at this, let me show you a study here, a recent study done here on our homeland. It was Pennsylvania State University that did this study. And basically what they did, they talked about the carbon footprint of the meat. What is the carbon footprint of the meat industry? What does that even mean? Basically, they're looking at meat, whether it be beef or lamb, and they're saying that there's a carbon footprint behind this. And you think, oh, what are we talking about? We've been, man's been eating meat for centuries, and now all of a sudden we have a problem with this. They're saying this is what's coming to your grocery stores. Let me show you some labels here. Now this already is happening in the United Kingdom. Once again, United Kingdom, Europe, what's happening over there. The labels I'm about to show you here, is already taking place in grocery stores in the United Kingdom. Here's one. Here's a label, carbon footprint on meat. Right there, they're going to say, okay, this is how much carbon is being used, being exercised if you get this meat. It's right there in the package. Well, that's just meat. How about potatoes? Well, here's another one. Look at this picture here. This label here is the carbon footprint on your potatoes. So if I eat potatoes, if I'm a meat and potato guy, I'm using too much. I'm making too much of a carbon footprint. I can't eat this. And if it's not just that, look at juice. Here's another one. On the actual carton of juice, there's a label there that shows the carbon footprint of juice. Now, again, these labels are already being applied in grocery stores in the United Kingdom. They're also using this chart. Let me show you briefly a chart here. This is the carbon cost of different foods. Basically, they're saying there's a greenhouse emission, whether it comes from beef, whether it comes from lamb, but those are the major ones. So in order to save the world, in order to save climate control, we must stop eating meat because the greenhouse emissions, the carbon is too much for that. So we're going to take meat off of your table. And promise number 4 that the World Economic Forum put out are the 8 promises they want to have in place by 2030. Well, now you understand where the meat's coming in. They're using global warming to come up with these silly numbers. And folks, this chart I just showed you talking about beef and lamb particularly. This is coming from the BBC over in the United Kingdom, and it's coming from the United Nations. I mean, they're coming together and they're merging on this. They are preparing the world to say your diet is about to change. I don't know about you, but do you want the United Nations dictating what you're going to be feeding your family or how much you can be feeding your family? Now, I don't know if they would jack the price up so high that we just can't afford it, or if people are really going to believe because I'm going to have beef, I'm going to have a hamburger or a steak for dinner, that I'm endangering the environment because the greenhouse gas emissions are too high for me to have a hamburger or serve my children a hamburger for dinner. This is where the world's coming from. And you put all this together with monetizing lust, with geopolitics, with Iran, with Israel, with the attacks, with persecution. Now I hope you understand how we say everything is converging, because it's all heading in one same direction. It's not that we got a problem over here and a problem over here. I got to put a fire out here or a fire out there. No, they're not separate. They're all coming together, and they're all focusing and pointing towards one final result. That sets us up for an end time scenario, which the scriptures have been very clear on. So, climate change food calculator. What is your diet's carbon footprint? Again, that's developed by the BBC. In fact, you can go on the BBC website and they will show you this calculator. They're saying that we need to switch our diets to plant-based diet. You have to have a plant-based diet for climate change, or otherwise you're going to damage this. And again, the United Nations port that's doing this is the IPCC. It's the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Control, IPCC. And again, they're saying in the West, particularly in the West, that our consumption of meat is far too high. And I'll show you a shot here from the website. This is the International Government Panel, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Control. You can go to the website and you can download the calculator and you can see for yourself what it's looking like. All right, so what is convergence? We talk about it a lot in the prophecy world. We talk about it a lot in the Bible. What does it mean? Well, you have, again, technology. We're now just a few months away, a month and a half, 6 weeks away, whatever it is, from adult verified AI generated erotica. It's even hard to even imagine what we're talking about or how perverted this can get. And then you have the finances, you have the money, where the money is coming together. Then you have politics, where you have France, Germany, United Kingdom coming together to be that E3. And they want to support what's happening with Iran and get behind that, who's tied into Russia and Turkey. And it becomes the beginning of the Ezekiel 38 coalition. And then you have religion and persecution, and how much of the world's population is living in countries where Christianity, with Jews and Christian, but particular Christianity, is being persecuted. And then nuclear armament, what's happening there, and then the climate change with our food, particularly beef and lamb. And it just leads to immorality. Folks, this is all coming together. It's a perfect storm. And I just want, again, you to be aware, you're going to hear the term, it's all converging. And I kind of wanted you to I wanted to take just a week and make sure that we understood what that really means. Everything is coming together and going much deeper and just launching us, preparing us for the days that are coming ahead. Now, what do we do about this? Once we have the knowledge, how do we apply the wisdom? The wisdom is applying the knowledge that we have. So now that once we have the knowledge, what do? We need to apply this. We need to be out there speaking this. We need to be telling the truth to people, because the mainline media is lying to people what they're saying. We're seeing that what took place in Gaza. Now that we have Middle East peace going on and we see what's going on in Gaza, we're seeing some of the propaganda it was always there. We were just told it was truth. And now we're being told that it was lies. We're seeing what Israel actually did. We're seeing what Hamas actually did. We're seeing a different side of the coin now that we can take a step back and see behind the curtain. Well, that's happening in all these issues I just brought up today. So, when I do this, I like to really resource you. If you've watched this show for a while, thank you for watching this. But if you follow Interpreting the Times at all, interpretingthetimes.com. If you go to our YouTube page, we have the videos there. If you get our weekly newsletter, we resource you every week. But our hearts with Interpreting the Times is to resource you. So what I want to do, I was thinking, okay, what can I do to resource people here? And what I think the best way to really apply what we're learning is to go out and to share it. So I want to put a tool in your hands that's going to help you with that. It's called apologetics. I remember the first time I taught this in my church, and I had a woman come up to me. She says, "Oh, I don't want to take that Bible study." And I said, "Okay, but how come?" She goes, "I don't want to apologize for my faith, and you want to teach about apologetics." I said, "Well, no, apologetics is not apologizing for your faith. It's defending your faith." It really answers the question, why do you believe and what do you believe? You believe this? Well, what do you believe and why do you believe that? That's what apologetics is. So what I've done in the past is I've taught the course on this. I am not going to get a hard copy book in your hands, but I do want to resource you. If you can just click on the link in the description below, we're going to get material to you from apologetics, from material I put together on the topic of apologetics. We're going to get that to you electronically. What kind of topic? Well, what really is the definition of evil? The things we're talking about, is it evil? And what is the true definition of evil? See, as you share this, people won't be on the same page with you. What is the sin of omission? Is that sinful? What is the sin, the stuff that we're trying to do for entertainment purposes? Is that the sin of omission? And what is that? What's the difference between judging and having discernment? Am I judging somebody or am I having discernment? Apologetics, can you explain what you believe and why you believe it? Well, why do we have different versions of the Bible and how do you understand what they are? Does everything really happen for a reason? People say, well, all happens for a reason. Is that true? And can we back that up biblically? Again, defending the faith, apologetics. And it all comes down to, why do you believe what you believe? And what is it that you do believe? So I want to put some material there that will help you process this so that you can go out and communicate it. You have information here. When we talk about greenhouse gases and what it means, we talk about carbon footprints. What does it mean? Again, you can look at what's happening in the UK. You can look what's happening in the European Union. They're already doing this. They were ahead of us with 15-minute cities. They've been ahead of us with the ESG scores. They've been implementing the things, and it goes over there, it comes across the pond, and it comes, no pun intended, but to our table as well. And it's on the way to do that. So, hey, again, I'm out of time for today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching this episode of The Final Hour. Again, I would love to have you go to Interpreting the Times, especially our YouTube page. And if you do, please like and subscribe. The more people are doing that, the more people who get to hear the truth. And again, sign up for our newsletter. It's a free newsletter. It comes out every Tuesday. We just want to be a resource for you. So between now and next time we get together in 2 weeks, I pray everything that you say and do glorifies God. God bless you.